You know that moment when you're about to follow up with a client, a contractor, or a partner for the third time in 1 week, and then you catch yourself? You're typing the message thinking, am I being thorough or am I being that person? And we all know that person. Because here's the thing about that person. You care about your business. You've built this thing from the ground up, and every tiny detail matters. Every relationship matters. But somewhere in the back of your mind, there's this nagging question: am I controlling this to death? And it's confusing because you're supposed to stay on top of things. You are the founder, the leader of your organization and your brand, the one who sees the vision, the one who shares the vision. But you also don't want to be the entrepreneur who suffocates every partnership, who can't let anyone else touch anything else, or who burns out trying to control every single outcome. So then you're stuck in this weird space of letting go too much and then things might crumble, or holding on too tight and you become the bottleneck. And that one we hear about all too often across social media. Then you become the reason nothing can move forward without you. And just that one paragraph alone is exhausting. And I'm sure many of our listeners right now can feel that. Honestly, it's isolating to have all of these things running through your head because no one really talks about this part of entrepreneurship, the part where you're second guessing every email, every delegation attempt, every time you trust someone else with a piece of your dream that you're building.
So let's just name what's really happening here. This isn't about how much you communicate with the people in your business. It's about why you're communicating. Because here's the truth, when you're communicating from a place of trust and clear expectations, it will build your partnerships. It's going to create momentum. It's build and it multiplies your impact. But when you're communicating from a place of control, even when you don't mean to, it creates friction. It slows down everything. It makes people dependent on you for every single decision. And here's the crazy part. People feel the difference. Your contractors, your clients, your partners, even if you're saying the exact same words. So the real question here is, am I micromanaging my business? The real question is, am I communicating to lead and empower, or am I communicating because I'm terrified of losing control? And that's what we're talking about today, how to use communication to build trust and leverage and not control and dependence.
You can now follow us on LinkedIn at Entrepreneur Encounter.
I feel like I ask myself this all the time. I am terrified of growing my business some days because I'm outside of my element. I've been a worker bee for majority of my life. And so I not like shooting my own horn, but I've always been really rather good at communicating and sharing and asking questions and ensuring people are on the same page, conflict resolution. But I've never viewed myself as a leader or someone who empowers. So going from worker bee to like, yeah, team spirit, we're all in this together, worker bees, to I'm leading and having my own team of worker bees is slightly terrifying. And so I don't know how to not necessarily lose control, but share control of growing and navigating a scaling business. So this whole situation leads me to an experience that I've had in the past. I'm going to call this person Marcus, all identities and such. But Marcus ran a digital consulting business. He'd grown it from just him and a laptop to a 6-figure operation with contractors, retainer clients, and, the coveted multiple revenue streams. By all accounts, he was a successful human being. However, Marcus had a problem he couldn't just shake, and he was the bottleneck in everything. He was the founder and the wearer of all the hats. Every client email had to go through him. Every contractor had to wait for his approval. Every decision, no matter how small, landed on his desk. And he was drowning. And it was in a conversation where in a team meeting, someone finally said to him, Marcus, you're going to burn out. Why can't you just let people handle their part? And his response was, well, what if they mess it up? This is my name on the line, my reputation. I can't afford for things to fall apart. But here's what he, and I'm sure several others tuning in, don't realize. You're not protecting your business by doing this. You're limiting it because you can now only take on so much because you are, in fact, one person. So he tried something. He sat down and wrote out clear expectations for every role: contractors, clients, partners, what success looked like, what the boundaries were, what people could decide on their own, and what needed his input. And this did take time. This is not something about going viral or getting done in a day. Like, this was a multi-day, multi-week experience of him really honing in on these expectations and how to delegate and not be the bottleneck. Then, and this was probably the hardest part, he not only communicated what those expectations were, he had to step back and let that unfold in the way that he had set it up. And at first, it felt terrifying. It is terrifying, but it's not like he abandoned everything. After a few weeks, something incredible happened. Now that he was learning to trust his team, the contractors, they started solving problems they didn't even know existed. His clients started bringing him bigger opportunities because he wasn't buried in the weeds. There was that trust factor being rebuilt, and his business started moving faster because he wasn't the gate everything had to pass through. He realized he'd been confusing leadership with control. And we've had guests on this podcast before who have undergone similar situations. Remember, he hired that HR consultant to interview his team. What was his name? We will have it in the show notes, but he did that. He had a neutral third party come through, and it was another similar Marcus situation where they flat out told him, you're the problem.
Yeah.
You need to get out of your own way, your own team's way. And more or less, much faster than Marcus, but he basically fired himself. He told his team, he's like, I'm going home. I'm going to get out of your way. And he let his team do what it needed to do. And within a year had seen like major success. So that episode will 100% be in the show notes because it was mind blowing with how well he trusted this HR consultant, but also how well he had trusted his team. And the turnover rate stopped too. Like, he had a high turnover rate. So he had a great team. He was able to trust and then move on and then see success relatively quickly.
You know, these stories amaze me because this is exactly what I do in my business as, operations and team management. I've had clients, they don't want to lose control, but in reality, you have to let go of some things because, you want to move your business forward. I remember a couple years ago when I was managing a team of, I believe it was 6 people, and my client, she wanted to start creating her own workshops, but she felt like she couldn't because she was doing all behind the scenes. She was managing her team. She was, I said, no, like you're done. Like, you are not doing that anymore. You want to go do your workshops, go do your workshops. I will handle the behind the scenes, making sure that things happen. There were times when she had to go out of town for a week and she was afraid that things were not going to get done. When she came back, she felt she felt great because things got done. And I was like, yeah, exactly. So when you are growing your business and you have a team, you're growing your team, there's going to be times when, yes, it is going to be scary. You are going to not really want to do that because, yes, you think that maybe you're going to lose your business in a sense because somebody else is coming in and not necessarily taking over, but taking the weight off your shoulders so that you are able to do what you want to do. You are the face of your company. You want to grow your business. You want to get out there. So let other people come in and focus on, I call it the grunt work because that's what it is, laying the foundation, making sure that things are getting done.
So how do you actually do this as an entrepreneur? Lay that foundation and get the grunt work moving. How do you communicate in a way that builds trust and leverage instead of dependence? So here are the shifts that can change everything in your business. And honestly, in your personal life as well, because we both know soft skills are not just professional skills, they are everyday life skills. So, number one is set clear expectations up front and then trust the process. Stop communicating reactively. When you bring on a contractor, a partner, a client, get crystal clear on the front end. And what does success look like for you through your partnership, for your clients? What are going to be the deliverables? What's your role versus theirs? Because even with client work, that client has a role to play too. So you need to communicate that once thoroughly and then let people execute. Number two, ask questions that open possibilities, not ones that check for failure. And this can be a huge difference. It can be a huge difference between, did you do what I asked? And what's your thinking on how to approach this? One assumes incompetence, the other is inviting collaboration, which allows your team to step up and maybe even share something you didn't even think about. Your question should create space for people to bring their expertise and not just execute instructions.
Number three, you want to build systems, not dependencies. Every time you find yourself being the answer to the same question more than twice, that's your sign. Create a system, a template, a process, a standard operating procedure, and you can, create a recorded training, write it out. But if your business can't run without you answering the same questions over and over, you don't have a business. You just have a job that you can't leave. Number four, communicate boundaries, not barriers. Let people know what's non-negotiable, your brand standards, your client promises, your values, but don't micromanage how they get there. Give people guidance. Give your clients or contractors guidance. That's how you're going to help scale yourself and your business. Number five, notice when you're feeling uncertainty with control. This is the big one. Sometimes we over communicate because we're uncomfortable with not knowing every detail in real time. But entrepreneurial leadership requires tolerance. Not everything needs your immediate input. Not every risk needs to be eliminated. Some things you just need space for things to unfold.
That might be the hardest one we have is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable of not knowing every detail and just kind of no spoiler alerts, basically. So here's what's really happening when you make this shift, not just number five, but the other four as well. You're not just changing how you run your business, you're changing what kind of business that you're building. Because when you stop leading from that controlling standpoint, you start building something that can actually scale and not just grow slowly. Like it will take off. That momentum will be there because it's now flourishing on its own. And that's the difference. Growth means you're doing more. Scaling means your business is doing more without you doing more. And I don't think that's something that is shared often enough because everyone talks about scaling, but no one really knows what that means. And here's the thing about letting go is it's terrifying at first. The first time you let a contractor represent your brand without your approval, it feels risky. I don't even know if I could do that yet. To be completely honest,
One
the
day.
first time you let a client conversation happen without you in the room, you're going to wonder if it'll go sideways. But then, more times than not, something amazing is going to happen. And the people you hire that you trusted to join your team are going to rise to the occasion and they're going to bring ideas you didn't think of. And they'll handle situations in a way that's going to surprise you. This is what entrepreneurial leadership actually looks like. And I have seen it again and again at my co-working space and virtual networking events, group coaching calls. They're not controlling every outcome, but creating the conditions where your business can thrive beyond your individual effort. And that's true growth. And it's not just, again, it's not just for your business, it's for you as well.
So let's bring it back a little bit. If you're feeling that tension, I want to stay involved in my business, but I don't want to control everything. You're not alone. Every entrepreneur is going to hit this wall. But the answer isn't to communicate more or communicate less, it's to communicate strategically. So ask yourself, am I doing this because it actually serves my business or because it soothes my fear of losing control? Am I building leverage or am I building dependence on me? Because strong communication doesn't mean constant communication. It means clear communication, intentional communication, communication that creates the freedom and helps you scale, not becoming the bottleneck and not having to burn out.
Entrepreneurship is hard, you guys. We know this.
Oh, yeah.
You've been in it a year, 5 years, 10 years. It doesn't matter. We all know there's hard seasons. And the fact that you're even thinking about these questions and the fact that you care about the difference between leadership and control, that already sets you apart in so many positive ways. So as you're going through the motions and thinking about how to be a leader instead of a control freak, give yourself some grace. Try just one small shift this week. Maybe it's going to be communicating expectations clearly with a new contractor and then stepping back and letting them do it. Maybe it's creating one system so you're not the answer to the same question anymore. Whatever it is, trust the process, trust the people around you, and ultimately, you have to trust yourself. You've built something real and tangible within your business, whether you provide products or services. This business is real. And now we have to let it grow beyond just you as a person.
Whether you're growing your visibility through Pinterest marketing or streamlining your podcast operations and team management, we help you build systems that work for you, not against you. As always, all of our information is in the show notes. Until next time.
You can now follow us on LinkedIn at Entrepreneur Encounter.
Thanks for spending time with us today. If something in this episode gave you a fresh perspective, share it with a friend or send us a DM. We love hearing how these conversations land with you.
And if you're curious about how soft skills can support your next season of growth, we each have more resources to share.
You can find Dana on Instagram at danas.desk.nc for Pinterest strategy and intentional marketing.
And Sarah at UR Rembert for team development, business leadership, and podcast support.
Until next time, keep leading with purpose
and growing with intention.